There's a particular kind of person who, when they fall in love, do it the way tide comes in. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day you realize the water has reached your knees and you don't quite remember when it started. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone who doesn't rush, doesn't perform excitement, doesn't say, "I think this is it," after the third date, and you wondered if they even felt anything at all. And then, months later, you find out they felt everything. They just process it differently. This is what we're exploring today. The psychology behind people who fall in love slowly. Not because something is wrong with them. Not because they're emotionally unavailable or guarded in some dramatic sense. But because their internal architecture for trust, attachment, and emotional certainty simply moves at a different pace than the cultural script we've all been handed about what love is supposed to look like. We live in a world that often celebrates intensity, fast chemistry, instant certainty, the kind of love that feels like falling. But there's another kind of person, quieter, more deliberate, who experiences love less like falling and more like building. And understanding this pattern matters. Because in relationships, in friendships, even in how we judge our own feelings, the assumption that love should feel immediate can make slow developing love feel like something lesser. It isn't. It's just less visible at first. So why might someone fall in love slowly? There isn't one single explanation, and it would be unfair to reduce a person's emotional rhythm to a single cause. But there are a few patterns worth exploring. In many cases, people who love slowly tend to have a strong internal need for psychological safety before they allow themselves to feel something fully. This isn't about fear in a dramatic sense. It's more like an internal checkpoint system. Before vulnerability is granted, certain quiet questions get answered first. Is this person consistent? Do their words match their actions over time? Can I trust what I'm seeing, or is this just a performance of compatibility? For some individuals, this isn't even a conscious process. It simply feels like caution that hasn't been named yet. Often, this pattern is also linked to how someone learned to process emotion growing up, or in earlier relationships. Some people were raised in environments where emotional expression was encouraged and immediate. Others grew up in environments where emotions were observed quietly before being shared, perhaps because trust had to be earned within the family system itself. None of this is a clinical claim about anyone's past. It's simply one possible thread among many. People are shaped by dozens of overlapping influences, and slow love is rarely the result of one experience alone. For certain individuals, slow developing love can also be connected to self-awareness rather than self-protection. Some people are simply cautious about confusing infatuation with genuine connection. They've perhaps noticed, in themselves or in others, how easy it is to mistake excitement for compatibility. How chemistry can feel like destiny in the moment and feel like a mismatch 6 months later. So instead of trusting the spark immediately, they wait to see if the spark holds shape under ordinary, unremarkable days. Tuesday afternoons. Tired conversations. Small disagreements about nothing important. That's where they're actually paying attention. Let's bring this into real life for a moment. Imagine two friends start dating the same week. One of them is already imagining the future after the second date, mentally rehearsing how they'll introduce this person to their family. The other, sitting at the same table over coffee, is thinking something much quieter. I like this. I'm curious. Let's see. To an outside observer, the second person might look less invested, less enthusiastic. But that's often a misreading. They may be equally invested. They're just building the foundation before they let themselves stand fully on it. Or picture a long friendship that slowly becomes something more. Two people who've known each other for years, who never saw each other that way, until one ordinary evening, doing something completely unremarkable like washing dishes together after a group dinner, something shifts. Not a lightning bolt. Just a quiet recognition. I think I've actually known this person this whole time. That's a very real way people fall in love, and it rarely gets portrayed in movies because it doesn't dramatize well. It just happens softly, in the background of normal life. Now let's look closer at a few specific patterns that tend to show up in people who love this way. The first is what we might call delayed emotional labeling. These are people who feel attraction or affection early, but don't put a name to it right away. In daily life, this might look like someone who enjoys spending time with a person, finds themselves smiling at their texts, even feels a small flutter of anticipation before seeing them. But if asked directly, "Do you like them?" they might pause and say, "I'm not sure yet." This isn't dishonesty. It's often a genuine uncertainty about whether what they're feeling is something lasting or just situational enjoyment. The benefit here is emotional accuracy. By the time they do name the feeling, it's usually well-founded. The challenge is that partners who express feelings quickly may misread this hesitation as disinterest when it's closer to thoroughness. The second pattern is observation before investment. Someone with this tendency tends to watch how a person behaves across different contexts before opening up emotionally. How do they treat a waiter? How do they talk about an ex? How do they handle being slightly inconvenienced? It can sometimes look like distance, almost like being tested, but it's rarely intentional gatekeeping. It's more that trust for this person is built cumulatively rather than granted up front. The upside is that once they do commit emotionally, it tends to be remarkably stable because it was built on actual evidence rather than hope. The challenge, of course, is that this evidence-gathering phase can feel slow and even confusing to a partner who's used to quicker emotional reciprocity. A third pattern worth noting is comfort with ambiguity. Slow lovers, in many cases, are unusually okay with not knowing exactly what something is yet. They don't need to define the relationship in week 2. They're comfortable existing in the "let's see where this goes" phase for longer than most people find tolerable. This can be a real strength. It removes pressure, allows things to unfold naturally, avoids the trap of forcing intensity that isn't authentic. But it can also create friction with a partner who interprets undefined as uncommitted, even when that's not the intention at all. A fourth pattern is what could be described as protective realism. Some people who fall in love slowly have, at some point, learned that excitement and reality don't always match. Maybe they've experienced a relationship that felt perfect in the beginning and fell apart later. Maybe they've simply watched this happen to people close to them. As a result, there's a quiet, almost instinctive habit of tempering hope until reality has had time to confirm it. It's not pessimism. It's closer to patience that has a reason behind it, even if that reason isn't always consciously articulated. A fifth pattern, often overlooked, is depth over speed in emotional bonding. These individuals frequently form fewer but deeper emotional connections. Quantity of romantic experiences interests them less than the quality of understanding within one connection. In daily life, this might show up as someone who isn't particularly interested in dating multiple people at once, not because they're rigid, but because dividing attention feels, to them, like diluting the very thing they're trying to build. And a sixth, more subtle pattern is self-trust through time. Many people who fall in love slowly have learned, through experience, that their own feelings need time to stabilize before they're reliable. They've perhaps felt something intensely in the past, acted on it quickly, and later realized the feeling didn't match the reality. So now, almost as a form of self-respect, they wait. Not because they doubt the other person, necessarily, but because they've learned to doubt the speed of their own certainty until it's been tested by time. Stepping back, what becomes clear is that slow love isn't the absence of feeling. It's a different relationship with feeling itself. These patterns shape not just romantic relationships, but friendships, family dynamics, even career decisions. Because the same internal mechanism, this need for evidence before emotional investment, often shows up everywhere. Trust is required. Over time, this can lead to relationships that are remarkably resilient, simply because they weren't built on a rush of chemical excitement alone. But it can also lead to missed connections, Moments where a faster-moving person interprets the silence as indifference and walks away before the slow unfolding ever had a chance to complete itself. What's worth sitting with, perhaps, is this. Love doesn't have a single correct timeline. Some people know in a week. Some people know in a year. Neither is more real than the other. The depth of a feeling isn't measured by how quickly it arrived, but by how steadily it remains once it does. And if you've ever wondered whether you love the right way, because your version doesn't look like the movies, it might be worth considering that your way simply has its own quiet logic, one that values understanding over urgency and steadiness over spectacle. If any part of this felt familiar, if you recognized yourself or someone you've loved in this pattern of slow, careful, deliberate affection, I'd genuinely like to hear about it. Share your experience in the comments, whether you're the one who falls slowly or the one who's loved someone who does. And if topics like this, the quiet psychology behind how we connect, resonate with you, consider subscribing for more conversations exploring the patterns beneath human behavior.